Hello, and you're very welcome to another episode of the JMAC podcast. I'm John Mann, and of course, this podcast is brought to you by Orgarich.com and Atak.ie. Use the promo code JMAC podcast to get 15% off on Orgarich.com and get the best skins, gloves, and equipment on Atak.ie. Be attack minded. And if you like what you're seeing, like and subscribe on YouTube because the sport's been absolutely brilliant so far. And tonight, I'm joined by Matty Ford, Conor McKenna, and Kevin McGurdy to chat about the enthralling weekend's action we just had and this weekend's league final. So much to talk about, lads. I don't know where to start, but one thing I know is I'll start off with Kevin McGurdy. How are you keeping?
Great, John. What a weekend of action. Absolutely, I think without doubt, the best National League in the modern times. The finish was super. Wasn't it just really, really poor that we didn't have any sort of, TV coverage worth noting from the national broadcaster, unfortunately. What can I say? 40 scores in Carrick and Shannon, an upset in Killarney, a brawl in Letterkenny, the Dubs dumped in Clonus, jubilation in sort of in Roscommon, the Rebels rebelling to stay up, Roscommon rising, the rise of Louth and Limerick, and I suppose the demise of Laois is a big talking point, but I suppose the biggest point that myself, Manny and Conor will have to talk about is the fact that cabin people are already complaining this morning about the price of tickets for Croke Park next weekend.
And you definitely read all that up a sheet. I know, but then, yeah. Matty Ford, how are you keeping?
I'm good, John. So don't ask me what I thought. It's going to be very hard to top that, to be fair. But I know, look at a deadly weekend of action. I said, we were kind of saying there before we come on, right up to the last minute. And someone said I think it was the third year in a row that on 70 minutes, Monaghan were actually relegated and they're still in Division 1. So look at it, it was a brilliant weekend. Across the divisions, with the exception probably of Division 4, which was a complete anticlimax with the fixtures fiasco, I think is the only way you can put it. But 1, 2 and 3, I think we had threw up some brilliant stuff to us. And we tipped up a couple of these teams. Maybe there weren't the bigger shining lights in some of the divisions, but I think we had mentioned a couple of these, the likes of Limerick over the last few weeks that had a great chance of going up, and the likes of them and Louth are probably some of the stories of the league. So look, I'm sure we'll get on to that over the next hour or so.
Super stuff. And Conor McKenna, you're a happy man after Westmeath beating Antrim?
Yeah, very happy. Westmeath, they got the win. Now it wasn't enough to get promotion, but Kevin's a bit disappointed there, I think. But it was just going back on that. Just I think the one big thing disappointment at the weekend is it's probably the only real thing you drew is that Proposal B didn't pass, because that would have made the last day absolutely electric, and it would have meant that the Cavan Tipperary game and Louth Limerick this weekend were games to see who would qualify for the All Ireland series. I suppose it wasn't to be, but there would have been 3 teams knocked out. You'd be looking at Kildare. I think it's Monaghan, Kildare and Dublin would be out of the championship now, and particularly Dublin being out now. Obviously, there's a good argument. It's probably true. If it was Proposal B, Dublin wouldn't have got knocked out. But you would have looked at you would have had 8 of the last 10 teams guaranteed now. But look, I suppose the league is a very good competition. I think they probably should have made it the championship. A joint competition would be excellent. But look, It's not to be. But a very, very good day to finish the league, especially with Westmeath beating Antrim.
Kev, you look like James Bond tonight with that black shirt.
Yeah, it's just in true, if I look like James Bond tonight, I want Banty to sign me up, because a bit of espionage been had by Monaghan over this last couple of years. I mean, I don't think we should go anywhere else but start with that game. What a game, John, that was.
I was going to start with that game, but I'm looking at my fixtures the way I have them padded out. But look, we will start with that game. Of course we will. It was the game of the weekend. Everyone had their eyes on it. It was down in Clonus. It was Monaghan 3-13, Dublin 1-18 in Division 1, round 7, last round of the league, lads. Where'd you start with this? An absolutely star-studded performance by Monaghan. Jack McCarran shot the lights out. He even got a wee chip goal to start off matters as well. But what a game down in Clonus. Monaghan have relegated Dublin. Matty Ford, what was your take in this game?
Look, we had said a few weeks ago about Monaghan. I think it was after they lost heavily to Kerry up in Monaghan that they could be in a bit of trouble. But like we said, they were one of these teams that could potentially turn it around. And Jesus, they've done it again. Like, it would have been very, very hard to forecast that. They're really hard, difficult to beat at home. Having said that, like obviously Kerry went up and gave them a bit of a pace 3 weeks ago, but in Clonus they seem to be a different animal, and there's been some tremendous games with Dublin there over the last 4 or 5 years, but like you just couldn't have seen that coming, and you know, it was typical Monaghan to celebrate at the end, like they qualified for the league final rather than staying up. But I think it is important for the likes of Monaghan to stay in Division 1. Now, those big games over the years, last number of years, have stood to them. So, like, they will be absolutely delighted this morning. I think we just said before we come on that will give them a serious shot in the arm, I think, going into the championship, that, you know, not just relegating Dublin, but I think more so for their own sake of staying up. But, you know, we touched briefly on it, I said before we come on as well, about, you know, we mentioned a couple of weeks back, Jack McCarron, that he really needs to step up. And obviously McMahon has been out. You know, you definitely wouldn't give Monaghan a lot of hope when people heard that, but by Jesus, I'll tell you, he stood up and done it in spades. But, you know, the big thing for any of the teams like Monaghan or anyone that's chasing the rest of them is consistency. And it's probably the one thing in sport that's the hardest thing to get from either a team or from an individual is consistency. And like lots of teams have done it over the years. Donegal have been really good for a period. Monaghan, Tyrone, Dublin are the only ones who have been really, really consistent in the last decade. And hence why they've won 6 in a row. And, you know, look, they might have been relegated. They're still absolutely in the equation for this year. But the key for any player, any sport, I think, is consistency. And, you know, it's going to be the same for Monaghan. Can they replicate that? And, you know, again, we just mentioned it with Conor before we come on, that, you know, have they gone to the well maybe too many times at the end of the league, that come championship, you know, you can only do that a certain number of times in a season. And, you know, will they still have the stomach for that kind of fight come championship again? I know they will, but, you know, will they be able to take on the likes of a Tyrone or the likes of a Donegal or a Derry and beat them? Because they're going to have to beat at least 2 really top quality Division 1 teams to win Ulster. And I suppose that's the only question hanging over. But look at yesterday. You take it on its own merits. They're outstanding. Some absolutely brilliant scores, and like Jack McCarron was just spectacular. You know, they even had a man sent off, and they managed to overcome that. They had a big lead. They were pegged back. They probably could have been pipped in the very end, but, you know, you hold your hands up and say, Jesus, fair play to Monaghan, and well done. It was a fair achievement.
100%, Matty. And obviously the form of Jack McCarron, it was just absolutely sensational. You couldn't fault him. I suppose the big thing is, Matty, I know they'll not panic with that yet, but bringing that form into championship, because obviously, like, it's that's what it's all about. And obviously a big day like that against Dublin, the sky is the limit for that man if he can stay injury free, Matty. Yeah,
look, and obviously injuries have been a big part of with Jack over the last number of years, but Jesus, left and right foot yesterday, like everything he touched turned to gold. You know, the goal, it finishes off then with the goal, and then, like, literally stroking a free over from 45 yards. You know, it was hit nearly the top of the net. You know, it was a serious kick with the pressure that's on it. And, you know, obviously he's not the first choice free take with McManus there. He takes out him. I know he takes him from the right hand side, but, you know, what a kick and what a time to do it. But, you know, his potential could be absolutely anything if he can get a run of injury free run. But look, the only good thing about the league and championship this year, there's such a short gap between the two of them. I think they will find it easier, and it's the same for most teams. And then the flip is the opposite. You know, for teams who are going poorly, they will find it hard to pick it up in a short period of time. But, you know, that should be a real shot in the arm to Monaghan. You know, with championship only probably 3 or 4 weeks away for them, so, you know, they will be delighted with that. And if they get Conor McManus back, you know, and McCarron, McCarthy, who did play well yesterday too, can take a bit of pressure off there. Big Moan at full forward is a serious target man who players can feed off. The 3 of those guys. So if Kieran Hughes is back, starting to play really well again, so, you know, Monaghan are steady in Division 1. They're taking along fairly nicely, and, you know, I'm sure Banty will be happy enough this morning when he woke up with Division 1 again next year, and, you know, a nice win like that heading into the championship.
Connor, is there any need for concern really for the Dubs, really? Because, like, I know probably panic stations and they were favourites probably to win that game, but I wouldn't just say they'd be too worried. Obviously, Paddy Small come back in, and Conor Callan, Connor. So, is there much need for concern just yet for the Dubs?
No, I don't think there's really any need for concern, to be honest with you. I think that the league and nearly performances are as important, if not more important, than results. I think the first 3 Dublin performances were terrible. They were very, very hopeless in those 3 games, to be blunt about it. I think against Kildare, they improved. They missed an awful lot of goal chances. Now, they would have been disgusted to lose to Kildare, but I don't think there was any cause for panic. And I think the last 4 league performances for Dublin have certainly been an improvement. They were excellent up in Omagh. They were very impressive against Donegal. And I think yesterday was always going to be a hard game. Look, they could have won, they could have lost. Probably the better team did probably win on the day slightly. But I don't think Dublin will be a bit concerned. And I think even the Dublin fans, like the league, at the end of the day, as the first point, it's only ever going to be preparation for the championship unless it becomes the same competition as the championship, you know. And Dublin are coming better performances towards the right stage of the league. They should be okay in Leinster, and I don't think there'll be cause for panic. Now, what I will say, they certainly have gone down a notch, and they're certainly not the best team in Ireland anymore, but I don't know if relegation in isolation is a big deal for the Dubs. But I do think Monaghan, while they're very good to win yesterday, the same thing kind of came back to haunt them. They kind of are destroying teams well on top, and they just don't kill the game. They let teams back in, and it's cost them an awful lot of times, and it could cost them again very, very soon if they don't get their act together. So I'd say Monaghan, it's another thing that came back yesterday, 7 points up, and I think like they just didn't kill the game. But I think no, both teams won't be too, like Monaghan would be delighted with yesterday. It suited them a win. Now I do think that there's too much maybe emphasis placed on staying in Division 1 without maybe any real evidence to back it up that it really does help the county or not, you know. But anyway, no, all in all, Dublin definitely not a cause for disaster in my book.
Oh, good stuff. What about yourself, Kev? The events that took place in Clonus yesterday in the sun.
That summed it up well. I think obviously this was a bigger game for Monaghan than Dublin. Look, lads, I said it a couple of weeks ago. Monaghan need Division 1 football. Maybe Dublin don't. That's the difference. And the reason is that Dublin have that pool of players that, you know, they've got a lot of new guys coming in, like Lurkin O'Dell, Lee Gannon's come in, Tom Leheff's come in this year, Sean Bulger. You know, they've got good exposure to Division 1, maybe dropping down in Division might help them guys, who knows. So it's not an overly big concern for Dublin. My big concern for Dublin coming out of the game yesterday was two things. One, the form of Brian Fenton again concerned me a wee bit in the middle of the park. A guy that has bossed games. Look, he's been consistently a powerful, beautiful footballer. But, you know, just seems a wee, at the wee bit, he's on a wee bit of a lull. And you obviously expect that from players. But that's a wee bit concerning. Concerned also with the back. You know, they're leaking goals. Their back line isn't as good as it was previously. They're trying out a different goalkeeper than they had. You know, Evan Comfort was in the start. Now Shields is in. They've leaked a lot of goals this year, which is so un-Dublin-like. So that's a concern. And the third thing, even though I praised him last week on Twitter and praised him on this, James McCarthy's a powerful footballer. Yeah. For me, pound for pound, the best footballer in Ireland. But yesterday, he seemed to get very, very uptight. He was obtuse. He got a stupid second yellow card. He gets sent off. And I suppose that in a microcosm has been my whole issue with Dublin this league. There just doesn't seem to be the same control under Desi Farrell as there was under Jim Galvin. We also seen one of the backroom teams stick a finger up into the crowd, you know, which was a picture. I mean, that might seem a small issue, but this total professionalism, this tight-knit bunch, you know, under Galvin seems to have sort of, you know, loosened a wee bit under Farrell, and maybe the whole control's not there, and that might be a small issue for them. Look, they blooded a lot of players as well in the league, let's be honest. Yesterday was the strongest team, bar Small and Con O'Callaghan in the league. And look, Matty said it, we can't write these guys off. It'd be stupid to write these guys off. They're going to go away now. They're maybe going to do another couple of hard weeks training, and they'll be a different animal come into the championship. They'll be backs against the wall. The press will be at them, whatever else. They'll be a different animal coming into the championship. So, look, all in all for Dublin, it was a wee bit too little, too late. Poor game to start of the season. You know, poor at the back. Discipline has been poor all season. You know, and on the flip side of that, when it comes to Monaghan, they needed Division 1 football. Division 1 football. Anybody that follows Ulster football would know Jack McCarron, by the way, didn't lick it off the grass. His father was a powerful footballer, Ray McCarron. I remember growing up watching him. Such a good, like, he scored one of the best goals Ulster football's ever seen from centre half forward one day from Monaghan, you know, and he's such a good player. You know, and the one thing about him is he stepped up to the mark in the absence of a few key players yesterday, not only Conor McManus. So, you know, fair play to him for it. His goal, there's a man that can tell us all about it on this screen, Manny Ford. It's always on. You know, Manny spoke so ably here 2 weeks ago about, you know, these young lads coming through and blasting balls, or, you know, when a side foot place or when the keeper comes out, he just majestically caressed it over the top of the keeper. And, you know why it was so beautiful? Because it was so easy.
Yeah.
That's why it was so beautiful to see. And it was only a speed of second thought, and it was absolutely beautiful that way. He stepped up when the pressure was on to kick the point. What I also liked about Monaghan yesterday was that 8 different scores. Kieran Hughes stepped up to the mark again. I spoke about him a couple of weeks ago. Mohan was very good for them last week. I think he kicked all 3 down in Kildare last week. He came up with a couple of big points in this game as well. Can I just say one thing that concerns me about yesterday right across all the games, and I'm going to make the point about this game. Ryan Wiley's second yellow card was, I thought, particularly harsh. But so also was the last free against Dublin, particularly harsh. Now, Noel Mooney from Cavan refereed this game. Now, why a Cavan man was allowed to referee a game in Ulster, and I'm not getting a Cavan here, John. What I'm saying is I think it was the wrong decision. We also look at the fact that David Goff then went over and refereed Kildare against Mayo.
Maybe had a good enough game though.
It doesn't matter the good enough game. What you got to do is you got to understand that this is the last match in the league. For me, the decision against Dublin for the last score was I'm no fan of the Dubs, but that was completely and utterly shocking free to give. Shocking. You wouldn't even got that netball, to be honest with you.
Or dodgeball.
It's just a point I want to make from it. But going forward, you know, Monaghan will love this. It gives them a bit of boost now getting into the Ulster Championship. They're down in the first round. Okay, they'll have a tight enough semi-final if they overcome down. But, you know, it's been a really weird league for Monaghan. This was their first home win. You know, me and Matty had been on before and spoke to you about how, you know, Clones and Enniskeane and these places have been such a fortress in the past. It wasn't this year, but, you know, they eventually come up trumps. The big thing they'll take away from this is character. Great character shown. Big win when the pressure was on, backs against the wall. McCarran stood up. Kieran Hughes stood up. Conor McCarthy played well. Darren Hughes played well. So, you know, Mohan as well stood up. So, you know, lots of positives for them going into the Ulster Championship. Momentum going into that 3-4 weeks out from now is massive for them.
Last thing, you talked about character there. I know we can slag Liam Sheedy's role in this Monaghan team, but did we see any of that yesterday, Matty?
Look, I don't know how you quantify seeing that in a team, to be honest. I'd be more interested in what I see on the scoreboard, or you know, I've seen Banty teams playing like this before with a serious amount of heart and passion and stuff like that. Look, I think I'm not putting down Liam's role rank, but I think it's very hard to quantify. You know, he can be talking to players, you know, he can have that winning mentality, but literally, you know, and we've done it ourselves and we've seen it ourselves. Once you go on the field, it's down to yourself then, and you know, particularly when pressure comes on, everything goes out the window and you're kind of working off nearly muscle memory. So look, at maybe it has had a benefit for me. I think, as I said, it's very hard to quantify it and it's very hard to see it, but you know, he's still there. You know, they obviously see something in him. Banty obviously sees something in him. So look, it's like Kev said here a couple of weeks ago, we're not here to put down Liam Sheedy. He's won more than we've ever won and is likely to. But you don't know what relevance it has, I suppose, coming across code. I don't know whether it's happened too often before and was a success. But look, at maybe he's offered something that we're not seeing. But I don't think there was anything very obvious there yesterday, if I'm being honest.
There you go. Happy days. And moving on to events that took place in Letterkenny. Donegal 114, Armagh 113, and Connor. It's a good confidence boost for Donegal going into the championship, and probably a pretty good game. But Armagh probably won't be too disappointed with this one.
Yeah, I think it was probably one of those games yesterday where we probably learned nothing out with them. Like, I think we kind of learned a bit from the other games, certainly from Kerry Jerome, which I'm sure we'll get to, and Mayo Kildare. But I just don't know. Like, did either team have much at stake? Donegal probably had slightly more. They were in a relegation battle. I don't know. I just think this was a hard enough game to dissect, to be honest with you. Do you know the type of way, like, just the two of them are meeting in the first round of Ulster. It's in Ballybuffet. It's going to be a very, very similar type of game. And I just don't know, yesterday, will we have learned anything ahead of the championship? And I suppose the only thing both teams will really pick up is actually, the only thing that will actually worry both sets of management is how many lads are going to get suspended and who's going to get suspended and which team is going to be affected more. Like, because it just seemed to me Armagh were happy enough to stay in Division 1. I don't know, did they expect Mayo Kildare to beat Mayo? Sorry, I think it was probably similar to West Meath Antrim game. I don't know, did either team in Corrigan Park yesterday expect Limerick to drop points against Fermanagh? I think it was the same yesterday. I don't know, did any team go out with a real thing that we're really going to win? Now, I could be totally wrong there, but I just think it was one game where we've learned very little, you know.
There you go. What about yourself, Matty?
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that. Like, and you know, most of the talk about this game is centered around what happened at the end, and from what I've seen, I've looked at it a couple of times, it was a whole lot of nothing, to be honest. It's pulling and dragging. I didn't see, and I could be wrong, I didn't see like a punch or nothing being thrown in the whole thing. So like, there probably will be worried enough, but like, you'd be really disappointed if you're the Donegal or Armagh camp and you get players suspended out of this, because to be honest, it looked like a whole lot of nothing. Now, look, it's a bit ugly looking, but I don't think it was anything like that. You know, there was a big row up there a couple of years back in the championship with Donegal and Tyrone. I don't think it was anything like that. I know it was in Ballybuffet or whatever, but I don't think it was anything like that. There didn't seem to be a whole lot to it, to be honest. But it was a real kind of one of those games where like Donegal's need were a little bit more than Armagh. Armagh, they couldn't be relegated. They couldn't qualify, obviously, for the league final realistically. So you know, it was a little bit of a dead rubber in one way. And there's a couple more teams around the country who played like that. And the last game in the league can have that. You know, I'm sure Armagh are probably looking at the first round of the championship, and yesterday, you know, wasn't really a big deal, and they kind of played like that. You know, there was no real bite to the game, and you know, it was kind of a bit of an early National League type feel to it. You know, it didn't feel like the last day of the National League, because I said there wasn't a whole lot on the line. I think Connor would have summed it up very, very well in his first couple of lines there, to be honest.
Perfect. And moving on to Fitzgerald Stadium, it was Tyrone 115, Kerry 211, and the Tyrone curse is going to keep going on for the Kerry lads. Kevin McGurty.
Yeah, can I just say something about the previous game? Just one quick note. I think it was absolutely shameful that we had a Division 1 game yesterday between two potential top 8 teams, and all RT decided to show last night was Kevin McStay and Kieran Whelan going at it about who should be suspended and who shouldn't, and what this happened and what had happened. Why don't you show us Michael Murphy's penalty miss, or the great goal that Nugent scored, or the fact that Patrick McBurty was on fire once again? It was all negativity. It was absolutely and utterly pathetic. They had a camera all right to show the fights, but they didn't have a camera to show us any of the good stuff that happened in Letterkenny, which us GAA enthusiasts want. So that's my rant over about it, but it was absolutely pathetic.
Yeah. But just on that, like the analysis on like, geez, this isn't having a swipe, but like the general analysis on the League Sunday, and I know we keep going on about it, and geez, we're just probably clutching at straws at this stage, Kev, but they are so bog standard. Kieran Whelan's not too bad, but Kevin McStay, it just looks like a handy paycheck for a lot of lads, Kev.
Well, if Kevin McStay and Kieran Whelan, if that had been Dublin against Mayo, the two of them wouldn't have been doing too much of that, in my opinion. Now, this might be an Ulster-centric thing, but that had 2 swipes at an Ulster team, and then one of them had another dirty swipe about Tyrone Armagh a couple of weeks ago, you know, about the boxing and whatever else. So for me, it might be an Ulster-centric thing, but when you want to do analysis in the match, talk about kickouts, talk about, you know, how the balls get into the forward line, talk about, you know, zonal defence or man-to-man marking or tackling, whatever else, and it doesn't seem to be happening. That was just really, really cheap yesterday. And it really, you know what, I'll say it pissed me off when I watched it, you know, because I want to tune in and want to watch, you know, who's scoring, great tackles, great blocks. I want to see all the positives in our game. I just thought it was really poor, John. But we'll move on to the Kerry game. Yeah, first win for Tyrone in 19 years since actually Mickey Hart's first season down there. I think it was 2003. First time Kerry had been beaten Clarny in 5 years, I believe, in a league game or in any sort of game. And the thing about it is, look, we can talk about Kerry all we want. I'm not going to talk about them really tonight. Let's talk about Tyrone. We needed a massive performance from Tyrone. I see Joe Brawley's come out today and he's made a bit of an over elaboration in saying that Darren McCurry's the best footballer in Ireland at the minute. Look, he's up there, but
he went on about all Ireland's. Yeah, he's
not the best footballer in Ireland at the minute when you've got somebody like David Clifford hanging about, you know. So to be that, you need to be consistent week in, week out. Furnace McCurry was on a GAA BBC podcast up here. He made a lot of headlines for what he had to say, but by Jesus, did he back it up yesterday. Now, what surprised me was Kerry, we talk about this Kerry defence all year, and Pat Spillane was on raving about it. You know, he might as well have been masturbating about it on the RTE the other week, you know, and they put young Dylan Casey on McCurry yesterday, which I was really surprised at because, you know, Tom O'Sullivan was the man for him, in my opinion. And they put Casey on him. And, you know, McCurry, he knocks that goal at a very crucial stage when Brosnan just scored the penalty in the second half. So McCurry stepped up to the mark yesterday. Petey Hart at centre-back was phenomenal again. And even though I've criticised Tyrone midfield in the last couple of weeks, Colin Kirkpatrick was excellent yesterday. Absolutely excellent. So, I mean, 3 big games from them. Niall Studden chipped in with 2 points from centre half forward. Kieran McGeary chipped in 2 points from left half forward. You know, for Tyrone, it was a massive performance. They went down there knowing they didn't know what was going to happen in the other games. They had to look after themselves. And by Jesus, did they perform? And fair play to them. And, you know, that we talked about the knock-on effect that the Tyrone incident had in Killarney. Was it 2 years ago or last year when they got an absolute hammer and they went away, they looked at themselves and they came back and being All-Ireland champions? This might just kickstart their season in the other way. They needed a big performance and they've come out of it with a big performance. And, you know, a lot of guys stood up for them this week, and I'm sure Fergal and Brian are coming up the road tonight really happy about that. On the flip side of that for Kerry, I suppose the one positive for Kerry was Tony Brosnan. Tony Brosnan's a phenomenally talented footballer. And the great thing about Tony Brosnan is he can play corner forward, he can play full forward, he can play centre half forward, he can even play in the middle of the park where he played for Tralee this year in the Sigerson. He's a really, really good footballer, and he was really good yesterday. Now he kicked 2-1, okay, got a penalty, but you know, his general work rate, his play, is bringing other people into the game. He's a real positive for Kerry this year. Also, when Gavin White came on running from deep, he was a very he penetrated Tyrone's defence a couple of times, and you know, again, another positive. Kerry won't be too worried about that. It was a good game to get under their belt. They put out a very strong team. Paul Keeney kicked 3 points. Okay, 2 of them were frees, but gives him a bit of a confidence booster. Stephen O'Brien got more game time. So you know, all of them things. Look, they'll be looking forward. They'll have probably had one eye going into this Sunday against Mayo. But for Tyrone, brilliant performance. Leader stood up. Really, really good character, and by Jesus, McCurry was unbelievable to watch.
I was going to ask you, lads, but there's not much more you can say after that, Manny.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think Kevin has took it off very well. But just to add, I don't think, looking at Kerry yesterday, we had mentioned a couple of times now, particularly in round 5 and 6, about the serious intensity they had in the tackle at the back, and it was completely non-existent yesterday. And I would say that maybe Jack O'Connor was holding a little bit back, whether it was intentionally or unintentionally. And putting Casey on McCurry is the perfect example. He would have been lined up. If that was a championship match, you could 100% be sure that Tom Sullivan would be marking him. I don't think there would chance, no disrespect to him, I don't think the chance still in Casey on him. I think it will be Tom O'Sullivan without a shadow of a doubt. But they just look like a team, because we mentioned it about Armagh yesterday, and Galway the same, who will come on to probably later on. You know, nothing really to play for. Very hard to get themselves up for it, knowing there's a league final next weekend where, you know, can have a little bit of an off week, and you know, maybe even for the management it's a little bit of a stick to beat them with this week, that, you know, look out, we're coming off the back of a beat and we're going into a league final, and I think that can focus the minds again pretty quick as well. But that serious intensity in the tackle and getting men behind the ball and getting a few numbers behind the ball that we'd seen over the last couple of weeks with Kerry just really wasn't there yesterday. And you know, obviously Tyrone's need of a win was much greater, but look at it again, similar to Monaghan, we'd said it a couple of weeks back, Tyrone were in a really bad place, and we said, you know, if anyone can get out of this in Division 1, it's Tyrone. And to be fair to them, they've bloody done it the hard way. But you know, again, similar to Dublin and Monaghan, both teams I think will be pretty happy going into next week. Tyrone safe, and Kerry heading for a league final and looking in fairly good condition, to be fair.
No massive complaints in the Kerry department, one would think. I think they'd be happy enough with their league campaign, but that Tyrone hoodoo is going to keep going on until the championship, we will see. And the last game of Division 1 of the weekend, it was in Avant Money Park, Sean McDermott. You had Mayo 220, Kildare 18 points, and Connor, James Horan's men are back at it once again.
Yeah, I think Mayo would be pleased with the manner of the victory yesterday. I was up at the match against Tyrone the week before. I thought they were very poor that day. They bounced back yesterday, got the job done. It was an 8-point win. I think Horan, they'd be very foolish if they weren't going all out to win the league next weekend against Kerry. I think we should see close enough to a championship side intensity there. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I think Kildare, I would have been very surprised if they had avoided relegation at the start of the year. To be honest with you, I'm surprised they picked up as many points as they did. Pleasantly surprised. They fully deserved the ones they did get. So the away form will be a bit of an annoyance for them. But to be honest with you, I think if Glenn Ryan reflects on the whole league, he'd be relatively happy. If he said to them they're going to beat Dublin and draw with Kerry and maybe beat Monaghan off the pitch in Newbridge, and while your away form be crap, I'd say he wouldn't be too disheartened. I think the Kildare people, they're not good enough to be a Division 1 team just yet. They have a bit of underage. I think Naas won the schools, and the Naas football obviously was in the Leinster final last year, the club, but they have a few good underage, a young enough team, but they're probably just not ready yet. And Mayo very, very pleased. I say while Kildare were a bit off the pace yesterday, I don't think they'll be too disheartened as a whole by their league campaign.
What about yourself, Kev? Routine victory for the men from the green and red. Yeah,
when you're kicking 22 scores in the Division 1 game at any time, you're going to be happy enough with that. Again, you know, it was a good response to what Conor has articulated rightly, was a rather lackluster, poor performance the week before in Omer. So it's a good response to that. I think the one thing Mayo's going to take away from the league, what we all are, is that Mayo have unearthed a couple of new players. Well, not new players, but they've reignited a couple of players. You know, Jack Carney kicked not 3 yesterday. Pádraig O'Hara came off the bench and kicked not 2. Apparently, by the way, fair play to him, he's taken in a couple of Ukrainian refugees. So fair play to Pádraig O'Hara, good guy off the pitch and on the pitch as well. Ran O'Donoghue was good, and Jordan Flynn continues to impress me. He scored a goal from the middle of the park. He was impressive the week before as well against Tyrone. So lots of positives for Mayo coming out of the league. They've blooded a couple of players, have reincarnated a couple of players, if you want to put it that way. They're a couple of... Look, they're going into Croke Park next week against Kerry, who sort of have a hoodoo over them. Would it be great for them to win the league? It would. Going into that game against Galway, it would give them momentum. But look, I don't know if they're going to go all out for it. On the flip side of that, with Kildare, it would be remiss of us not to mention Ben McCormick. He's been exceptional for them all league. He kicked 0-4 yesterday, I think, in the first half alone. He's a great workman, like, back to forward, modern day wing forward. So, good to see that. Is it a positive league for Kildare? I think Connor's articulated it really, really well. Maybe they have to go down to come back up. Maybe get another year down below. The one game that they'll be looking at is, I don't care what anybody says, they should have beat Tyrone and Oma, and that would have kept them safe. That was the big, big chance. And I'm sure when Glenn Ryan, Anthony Rainbow, Dermot Early and these guys...
Paul Galvin.
Yeah, when they go away to look at that, that will be the big, big regret. So they've been competitive all league. Look, they've set themselves up for a nice championship. Maybe, probably, we'll look at them against the Dubs inside Croke Park, and maybe they just, at the minute, maybe they haven't got the strength and depth. But certainly through the back door, they'll be looking a long summer.
Sorry, just while we're on the topic of Kildare, Kevin, I think the last Cavan man to play for championship football, probably Shawnee Johnson, was in Croke Park. I'd say, has another Cavan man played in a big game at Croke Park since?
That was Junior B hurling, if I remember rightly.
Oh, Lord
above. A low blow, but just
don't mention the war.
A final point or two on that. Like, I think I'd seen very recently where I think only about 40% of Mayo scores in the National League had come from play. But I think the more than answered that yesterday. I think they scored 218 from play yesterday. And as lads said, a serious spread of scores. Flynn got 1-2 from midfield, and they got kicked a huge amount of scores from play. So like that'll be a huge shot in the arm for them going into the league final. Look, they're in a final. They're obviously going to have a go at it. To beat Kerry in the league final 4 or 5 years ago. So they're Kerry's was it on here? I think maybe we were talking about it lately. Kerry's record in Croke Park, and I think they've won one of the last 11 games. I think I seen with Connor's probably be able to tell me exactly if that's right, but I think I've seen that somewhere very recently, which doesn't I wouldn't say inspire a lot of confidence, but it's very unsurprising. Very surprising, for Kerry, but I think this Kerry team has a little bit more about it than maybe the Kerry teams of the last 3 or 4 years. But Mayo are tipping along fairly nicely. They're after building a bit of a panel again. I don't think we'll see probably Aidan O'Shea at centre back maybe next weekend, but that midfield now is probably, if not, is one of the best in the country, and they're probably only going to get better. So Mayo will be quite happy with where they are as well.
Absolutely. And moving on to Division 2 in round 7 in Park Esler, it was Clare 2-14, down 1-9, and obviously Matty, huge disappointment for the down lads. They were trying to get some sort of a performance going here for the last league game. They just couldn't do it. Clare coasted home to victory.
Yeah, but look at this looked like one of, I think I'd seen this and I wasn't on last weekend. Clare, I think, were even money in this game, and to me it was an absolute no-brainer. Jesus, like,
did you back them?
I did. And I'm trying to think. I had four teams, and I think it was actually Antrim. Antrim let me down from the
Never
four.
Back Antrim.
Unfortunately, no. In fairness, I have been an Antrim fan this past couple of years, and they've got me a couple of quid over the league this year. But no, I just thought this was one of the biggest no-brainers of the weekend. Clare going up. Clare weren't going to go up and take it handy up there. Colin Collins has got a group of players there, and we've mentioned on several occasions that have been punching above their weight for years at this stage. Like, while they were comfortable, there was nothing to play for. Confidence has to be at an all-time low and down, and I think once the team got a couple of points ahead, I think it was going to be game over. And like, Clare's still a bloody good team, and not too many teams are going to fancy playing Clare in the championship or in a round robin when it comes to that. And they're just like poor out down. Like, you do have to feel sorry for them. The game, there was nothing to play for them. They were already relegated. It was trying to get some bit of something to hang on to go into the championship, but it's going to be a tough few weeks on them trying to get themselves up, and particularly for Monaghan, that's a big ask. But Clare tipping along fairly well too, and they were impressive again yesterday. 2-14 is good scoring, and that'll win you a National League match, I think, any day of the week.
And Kev, just brief word on the other side of things for down there. We're probably blue in the face talking about down football at this stage. Worrying times. I know James McCartan's gone in to give a hand there, but Christ, really, where did it go from all this, Kev?
I think we'll go back to what Johnny Murdo said the other week about maybe Cork. You take each game at a time. You look at, the video analysis. I know Aidan and James will do that. They'll sit down, they'll look at things. Look, they're conceding goals at the back. They conceded one after 9 minutes yesterday. But the main issue out of the down match yesterday, listening in, was their indiscipline. Finn McElroy, who's a very good full back, by the way, and a good up-and-coming talent, seems a good young man. He gets straight red after 55 minutes. Pat Haverin got a black card. And I think maybe, was it Liam Kerr or Jerry Collins? Maybe Jerry Collins, I think it was, got a black card as well. So that indiscipline cost him. And when you're going down to 14 men in an inter-county game, and at one stage maybe down to 13 men, you're up against it. So look, the big thing for down is get back to base. Look at where they are. Look at what's happening down below at minors 21s, or 20, sorry, Connor. They had a good win in the 20s on Friday night, Saturday night, in the first round of Ulster against Fermanagh. Look at the video analysis. Look where they're going wrong. Their kick-out's not great. Their defence is really, really poor. Their structure's really poor at the back. And, they're making wrong decisions up front. So cut it right back to basics and see where that brings them. They've got a couple of tough, hard weeks of training ahead of them before they go in against Monaghan in the Ulster Championship. And look, no man and his dog is going to give Down a chance against Monaghan. But the fact of the matter is, this is Down. They're like the French rugby team. One week they could beat New Zealand, the next week they'll get beat by Fiji. And that's, you never know with Down get into the championship. You just bloody well never know with them. And everything's stacked against them. So, maybe they can use that for motivation, for psychology. But look, strip it right back down.
Yeah.
The basics aren't right. The defence isn't right. The kick-out isn't right. And they're not picking the right options up front.
I don't know about championship. It'll get their house in order for time, but we will wait and see. And in Park Tolchin, it was Derry 116, Meath 211. Conor McKenna, you're taking this game?
Yeah, well, I think just as was an interesting stat is Derry are the first team in the history of the league since they started in 2007 with the new format to get 11 points and not get promoted. So they were very, very unlucky in that sense. And I think Rory Gallagher will be, I'd say if he looks at the league as a whole, if he decide leave out the Galway game, they had 6 relatively good performances, and winning yesterday in Navan was a test of character. I think it was actually interesting because Derry probably knew when they saw the Galway team that it wasn't going to be much of a chance of getting promoted. That Roscommon were probably going to win the game, and they still went up and won in Navan against a team who might have beaten them in previous years. So I think Derry Division 2, as we've probably seen earlier, performances at this stage is important. Now, have they a chance of beating Tyrone or Fermanagh in the first round? Well, they have a chance. If it's Fermanagh against Tyrone, they'd be up against it. They would have a chance, but I think the way the league was going earlier, people would have expected Derry to win, and I'd say now probably Tyrone would probably be favourites going into that game. But look, I think as a whole Derry would be pleased enough with the way the league has gone, and despite not getting promoted, I think they would have liked an extra game next weekend, but I think as a whole they'd be relatively pleased,
Maddie, what about yourself?
Yeah, it was a good win, albeit no use to them in the end for Derry to go down there. Like, they've been going down and getting beaten by Meath over the last number of years, and quite comprehensively. Meath have been very much on top of them. But exactly what Connor's saying, I think they'll be happy enough with their league. One really poor performance, and they hadn't a hope of going up yesterday. Our Galway are one of those 3 teams I mentioned, along with probably Kerry and Armagh, that they had their eyes on next weekend. They were qualified. They weren't worried about Derry or whether Derry were going to get promoted or not. They were looking after themselves, keeping a few guys fresh for next weekend, and another joust with Roscommon. So, but look at it, it's another poor enough result for Meath. Away from Derry, Meath haven't had a hectic league campaign by any manner of means, and to lose at home again, like we've said all along, winning your home games is vital in the league if you want to make progress. The 2 wins and 2 draws. It's not good for Meath, and it's not good for them going into the championship. To finish 4th in that division. Level of points with Clare, only ahead of them due to the fact that they beat them. So, that puts them into 4th, 5th place in Division 2. Is not ideal preparation going into the championship. But Derry are ticking along fairly nicely. I think they will absolutely give Tyrone a match in Ulster, and I wouldn't be ruling them out just yet. I presume Tyrone come through against Fermanagh. I wouldn't be ruling Derry out just yet, but they've had a really good league campaign. I'm sure. Look, they obviously would have liked to go up to Division 1, but maybe another year in Division 2 won't be the worst thing for them either. With Gallagher coming in there and trying to get his way across to them. and get another year of playing like that, because they're well capable of going up a division, back up a Division 2 next year with the likes of Dublin probably. It looks like it's probably between themselves, Dublin and Kildare already. We would say next year for promotion, and on a day are very good enough to beat Kildare. Of course they are. So no, I don't think they'll be overly disappointed. Another year setting that division could actually be a huge help to them.
Definitely. And moving on to Barton and Mona, O'Connor Park, you had Cork 121, Offaly 120, and Kev, very, very exciting game. Offaly had an absolutely brilliant game, really. Anton Sullivan, Niall McNamee was top class, but Cork, Stephen Sherlock stepped up once again, which was an absolutely enthralling encounter, Kev.
To steal a line from the great Dutch commentator Sid Waddell, this match had more twists and turns than a rattlesnake with a hernia. It was a humdinger to listen to on the radio. It was toing and froing.
Niall McNamee.
The one thing I have to say about the game was, in fairness, going up, none of us really fancied Cork. The momentum wasn't really there. We talked to our good colleague Daniel Goulding about it. Their away form had been absolutely atrocious. They picked up all their points down in Cork. So, there wasn't a great deal of expectancy on them to go up there and do well. But look, they set the pace. But then comes in this whole thing of the character that Offaly showed, not once, but twice, to come back into the game. And it's them old leading lights, Anton Sullivan, Niall McNamee. I think Bill Carroll kicked 0-3 for Offaly as well from play, which was a big contribution to it. And, when you look at things, Offaly sort of had the game almost won at 120 to 119, and then Cork got a score. I think it was Stephen Sherlock got a score. And then, that nonsense then with the back pass happens. And you got to, look, Offaly can look at this game all they want. Offaly lost their position in this league through the last minute goal that Meath got in Bodemona back in I think it was round 3 or round 4. Meath got a last minute goal down there to draw it. They only took a point from that game. Offaly improved steadily throughout the league. Yes, they won the under-20s a couple of years ago. They have a lot of young lads coming up. But as Matty said, there's only one way to get young lads ingrained, and that's get them in the hard end of things and get them to learn. And I'm sure, that back pass issue yesterday, people have learned from it. I think Kevin McStay had said that last night as well on League Sunday at RTE. And I would say that John Mahon and Tomas O'Shea and them guys down there, they're happy enough with the league that they've had. They were competitive. Remember, Offaly went up last year. We're not saying they're going back down. I would expect them to get up again next year. But they were really competitive in most games that they played in this league. And, lots of positives to take away from it. On the other hand, Cork, they were hanging on the cliff edge. Second biggest county in Ireland, 262 clubs. Absolute joke what has happened down there over the last 7-8 years. Should be a Division 1 team all the time. Should be always challenging in the last 4 or 5 in the country, even 6, whatever else people want to say. Keith Rickon needs to be given time down there. He's a good guy. He knows the Cork under-8 setup. He's been involved with the under-20s. They haven't had a good league, but in fairness to them, they've shown a bit of character. They showed a bit of character against Down last day out, showed a bit of character against Offaly, and they've clung on. But now's the time to move on from that. Now's the time to start building, going forward, so they're not in that position again this time next year. Look, I don't think they're going to do a lot in the championship this year. That's being realistic. But, they've got to get a starting point. They've survived. Maybe just this is their starting point.
There we go. And in the last game of Division 2, in Dr. Hyde Park, you had Roscommon 120, Galway 115. And Connor, job done for the Rossies. And in fairness, they didn't get enough probably credit for their league performances all year. Well, they topped it off very, very nicely yesterday.
Yeah, I was a bit disappointed with Galway with the team they put out, to be honest with you. I think that just purely for one simple reason is that Galway had won 8 games in a row between. I know it means obviously not in the FBD league, but they have won their 6 league games. They have won the FBD league, and if they had beaten Roscommon yesterday, that would have been 9 wins in a row, and with a chance to win a league final, they could have gone into a Connacht Championship match against Mayo with 10 wins in a row. Now, and that's invaluable momentum to have, So while Porry Joyce won't be a bit dissatisfied really with the league, it's gone very well. I think it's probably important that Galway do win next Sunday when both teams do meet in the league final. I think that's probably Galway's biggest game to get back to, because you don't want to be going in playing Mayo in Castlebar having lost 2 games in a row to Roscommon. Do you know what I mean? No matter what anyone says. So I think Roscommon would be very pleased to get back up. I think they really have been a yo-yo team lately. I suppose the challenge for them is to stay in Division 1. Looking at the teams next year, I suppose they won't be one bit worried now, but it will be hard again. There's no probably, Roscommon probably would be on paper one of the weaker teams in that division, So Galway, look, yesterday was what it was. It was Galway were already promoted, and as lads said, I don't know was there much to say for them, and Roscommon took full advantage and got over the line.
There we go. And moving on to Division 3 in Carrigan Park, you had Westmeath 113, Antrim 12 points. Kevin.
Yeah, not good from an Antrim point of view. Look, regardless of what was happening with Limerick and Louth, Antrim had to do their own job, and that's all they had to do. And look, I spoke up in the last couple of weeks about the importance of a good start. Antrim got an excellent start to this game, raced into the lead, and then all of a sudden collapsed. I got a text today from a guy who was at the game. I think in 42 second half minutes, Antrim scored 3 points. And at this level of football, you can't expect to win a game like that. Westmeath didn't start well at all, stayed in touch. And actually, quite ironically, Conor might laugh at this, it was John Hastings' penalty against Longford to turn the game against Westmeath in the Longford game. He actually stepped up again. He showed a bit of balls, stepped up after he had missed, and he buried the penalty in this game. And I think after Westmeath get 1-5 without reply. So, once again, from an Antrim point of view, you've dropped 6 points in the league. You've dropped 4 of them at home against Limerick and Westmeath, 2 of your direct competitors. Sorry, you've dropped 7 points in the league. You've gone away to Laois and dropped a point that you should have won. And you've been comprehensively beaten by the team that's topped in Louth. So, at the start of the year, not to be negative about this at all, Antrim were probably thinking about just staying in this league. When Laois and Westmeath were coming down, probably Fermanagh had been in that league for a year, so sort of knew the lay of the land. As at Limerick, they would have been probably happy where they finished up. Let's be honest about that. Next year is a totally different story. Division 3 is going to be a nasty league next year. Down and Offaly coming down, Cavan and Tip coming up. I would say at the minute I would put Antrim in the bottom 3 of that, if I'm honest with you, because Mick McCann and Conor Murray are getting a wee bit older. I don't know if they're going to be around too much longer. They've been very, very good players for them in the league this year, very consistent. So I don't know where that's going to go for them. But look, Antrim need to sort out their home form. You have to win your home games. You have to start well. And you can't let a team kick 1-5 without response. You can't go in an inter-county game. You can't go 42 minutes in the second half, only kicking 3-4 points, whatever it was. So fair play to Westmeath. Antrim had a job to do. They didn't do it, and they've suffered the consequences of not going up. It's a kick in the goalies for them, but they'll have to regroup for the championship now against Cavan. They've Cavan to come in less than 4 weeks in Carrigan Park. It's a winnable game for Antrim, John. I know you don't like me saying that, but get a win gives them a bit of boost. So not ideal, but again, the expectations were just to stay in the league, and they've done that.
There you go. And Conor, you're a happy man this week.
Yeah, well, I suppose just from Westmeath perspective, just to probably follow up on what Kevin was saying, right, and nearly all that there, to be honest with you, but I just thinking that Westmeath after the Longford game was they were probably looking at disastrous, the type of way, but they've had 3 good performances since, and I suppose they have a chance to get revenge against Longford in the Leinster Championship first round. So they're coming into the Longford game on a bit of a high, despite not getting promoted. As Kevin said, they're all Westmeath and Antrim could have done yesterday was worried about themselves, and Westmeath just came out on the right side, and I think both sides could probably meet again in the Tailteann Cup, and I suppose it's the same with all those teams Westmeath played in Division 3, with the exception of Louth and Limerick. They could meet them again in the Tailteann Cup. So I think as a whole, Westmeath, it'll be mixed enough league. They probably thought Division 3, I think next year it's probably going to be a bit of a stronger standard in Division 3, with Cavan and Tip going up and Down and Offaly going down. But I think Westmeath, it's important for them to beat Longford. I'd like to see counties take that Tailteann Cup seriously, and I think hopefully Westmeath can go on a run in that if they do manage that and have a good championship.
There you go. Perfect stuff. And in MW, higher O'Moore Park, you had Longford 217, Laois 113, and Matty, great win for the men from Longford.
Yeah, some big, everything was on the line here, and I suppose it's ironic that there's a Laois man training Longford, and he relegates Longford relegates Laois with Longford in Laois. That's think that's back-to-back relegations for Laois, which is not good. You know, probably after week 1 or 2, we were tipping them up here. I think they lost in round 1 of the league, and we were tipping them up here probably to get promoted. But you know, it's been a bit of a shambles for them, to be honest. The league, if we're being honest, you know, 2 wins and a draw, 9 goals conceded. You know, Jesus, we were looking at them instead of the start of the league as one of the main players in this division, and now they're heading back again. And you know, it's a long way back here from Laois football, similar to Down, you know, who's a big football county as well. It's a long road back from, and it's not looking like it's going to get any easier. But look at Jesus Longford, fair play to him. You know, we had them doomed here only a couple of weeks back as well. Along with Wicklow, it looked like it was only a shootout of who was going to finish second last and who was going to finish last. But you know, they've really got their act together over the last couple of weeks, and they picked up a couple of vital wins. And you know, 2-17 to score away in Laois, there's nothing to be sniffed at that. And you know, they'll be delighted to hang on. That's what the lads said, into a fairly really tough Division 3 next year. But look at, for most of the teams in Division 3 and 4, and we've said this over a number of weeks, that's where you're going to get most of your joy probably through the season, and that's where you're trying to make your improvements. Like the likes of Longford and Laois are not going to have long championship runs, so you know, you're trying to make your gains through the league. And you know, this is a big blow to Laois, I think. But you know, fair play to Longford to go down there and do that. Haven't been anything but impressive throughout the league. I think it's a really good win for them, and similar to we were saying to Monaghan earlier on, it's a nice shot in the arm for them going into play Westmeath in the first round in Leinster in 4 weeks' time.
Mm-hmm. And Conor, what about yourself?
Yeah, well, I think I saw Laois a good bit last year, and they were very, very poor. So I wouldn't have been as optimistic as a lot of people about them doing well in Division 3, to be honest with you. You know, I didn't think they would have got relegated to Division 4, but I certainly wouldn't have had them amongst the main promotion contenders at the start of the league. And I just think they've gone a long way. Like, it was a bit of I suppose from a Laois perspective, what to be most disappointing is they went from Division 4 to Division 2 in 2 years, and then they spent 1 year in Division 2, and then they went back down in 2 years. So I suppose they're kind of back to square one now in Division 4. And to be honest, it just doesn't seem to be much going for them in Laois at the moment. Things going right, and I did they play in Wicklow in the championship in the first round. Like, it would be an absolute blow for them to lose that game. But I suppose, just to repeat what we were saying about the Antrim Westmeath, I'd like to see teams like Laois really going for it in the Tailteann Cup and giving it a go and trying to win it. Like, you have a lot of teams, I think all 4 of us are from counties that are very likely to be in the Tailteann Cup this year. Do you know, like, and it has the makings with 16 teams of it, not a bad competition. I'd like to see teams take it seriously, to be honest, and maybe get a chance to win.
Yeah, no, spot on, Con, spot on. It'd be something teams really should get their eye in for. And in the next game in TUS Gaelic Grounds, it was Limerick 116 for a man of 14 points. And Billy Lee, what a job he's done, Kev.
Yeah, listened to him on RT Radio yesterday on Sunday Sport. Really good interview. Really grounded guy. Been talking about the process, how they've been on this road for 4, 5, 6 years, how the Limerick County Board have bought into this. Unfortunately, I think the former Limerick County football chairman passed away last week, so a big week for them going in, and you know, he was saying that sort of motivated the guy. So look, Fermanagh really going down, you did a real massive outside chance of promotion, and you know, they were safe enough in the league after a poor enough start. For Limerick, it's phenomenal, brilliant, back up in Division 2 for the first time maybe since 2007, I believe. So you know, for them, it's about getting up that league, getting into higher football, playing against good quality teams. Look, they've got Dublin maybe inside Croke Park next year. They've got Meath coming down to visit them. You know, they've got you know, teams like Derry as well. So you know, that's only going to be quality. It's only going to bring players on. You know, and Billy D was talking about how a squad have stood up this year, how young lads have come in and sort of regenerate things. And look, as I say, when you look at the 16 teams in the Tailteann Cup this year, the 2 teams that everybody else wants to look at probably are Louth, and who we'll come on to talk about now, and Limerick, because they have a blueprint of how you build from the base right up, and you know, all congratulations to them and fair play to them.
There we go. And where are we now? Yeah, in Division 3, the last game of the weekend was in Aughrim, 2 Louth 217, Wicklow 113, and Matty Ford, Mickey Hart. I know he gets a lot of plaudits, I know he gets a lot of criticism, but Christ help us, that's some bit of achievement he has with the Louth senior footballers.
Absolutely. And they've done it the hard way as well. They had a poor enough start to the league too, but they really came good with some really good away wins. And obviously Wicklow have been struggling over the last number of weeks and last number of years, I suppose. But to go down there, Wicklow got a decent enough start, but Louth have been really impressive and finishing games really strong. And I think we mentioned about Kildare earlier on, and probably even Monaghan to a certain extent, about seeing out games and finishing out games and killing them off. But when Louth got the chance here, they certainly done that. And look, it's very hard to speak about Louth any week and not mention Sam Mulroy. Scoring at the highest order again. I think the highest score in the league this year by some distance. But fair play to Mickey Hart. Two promotions in a row from this year from a not very promising position, to be fair, as fair going. And they'll be delighted being back up in Division 2. It will be tough for them, but look at it, they're not going to worry about that now. The league final in Croke Park to look forward to next weekend, and then what is it, I think 3 weeks into the first round in Leinster. So they're going to be absolutely delighted. And look, it is a serious achievement for Louth. No more than any of the counties. Of the four of us, they're not picking from a huge player pool. I know probably football is the first sport in Louth, but geez, it's some achievement. And look at Mickey's record, I suppose, speak for itself. There's not a great tradition of high profile managers going in to take a Division 4 team and taking them anywhere. But Mickey is backed it up with 2 promotions, and he's signed on until 2025. So the people in Louth will probably be thinking by the time he leaves, he'll be in Division 1 the way things are going. But he's done a serious job there, to be fair. And we were just talking, I think, again before we come on. They're up there in Leinster now with the likes of Meath, maybe a little bit behind Kildare and Dublin, obviously, but they're getting there, and they will be a game for anybody in Leinster this year, probably outside Dublin. I can guarantee you that.
Connor, a word on Sam Mulroy. He shot the lights out all league. I see he's going to be a guest on the BBC podcast this week, so it'll be a good listen to. What a season that man is having. Yeah, well, Mulroy is a brilliant player, and I think it was a transfer market. I think Mickey Hart once said if he's going to take any player in Ulster, he'd take Kevin McGorty. But I think if you're asking a lot of managers, now, what carry the water bottles. What player was they taking outside of the top 2 divisions? I said they'd probably take Sam Mulroy. To be fair, I think that he is an exceptional player. I used to know him a bit when he was playing for GAA. They're a very, very good player. Like everyone in Louth would be speaking very, very highly of him. But I just they could just. This is probably an interesting point with the league's measurement, like it allowed going up to Division 2, but I often wonder, is it as big of a deal as people think now, league progressing through the divisions? And Matty, I'd put this to you, like when you play for Wexford, like you'd be remembered very much so for your big championship wins. I think the Wexford game against Armagh 2008, but I think those championship wins are far more important for a county than what division they're in. Like if you look at Mick O'Dwyer when he was in Wicklow, people won't remember that they started in Division 4 and finished in Division 4. They remember the big championship days. And I think those days are nearly more important for a county. Like John, even with Cavan there, like if you said to Cavan they get relegated in 3 years but win an Ulster title, or 3 successive relegations and an Ulster title in between, nobody in Cavan would really care. So I think championship big results is what Mickey Hart needs now is the next thing. And I think Louth are capable of definitely taking a stab in Leinster. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Of course, people will remember championship wins, but we spoke about this probably one of the first weeks I was on, that the way we progressed and were ended up invariably being able to beat teams like Armagh in the championship was by going up through the divisions. I would have played a lot of my early years of football at Wexford in Division 4, and we struggled. It probably took 3-4 goals to get out of it, and eventually did. But by going up through the divisions and playing teams who are at your level or consistently better, like we went to Division 1 and it was kind of sink or swim. You're playing the likes of Armagh, you're playing Galway consistently, all really, really, really good teams, and you either step up to the plate or you're getting relegated again. But I would 100% believe it's the further the likes of Louths and Wexfords and Cavans and Westmeads and Antrams and teams like that, the Limericks, can get up through divisions and get exposure to playing against really top teams where there's no hiding place. And we're saying this about young fellas as well. It's the same thing, where there's no hiding place. You get more comfortable in that atmosphere, I suppose, or in that pressure and playing at that speed that, when it comes to playing a team, like when we came to play Armagh that time in the championship, we had absolutely no fear because we'd beaten them twice in the National League in the previous couple of years. We've been beating Meath regularly, we'd beaten Kildare, we'd beaten Galway. So, we've beaten a lot of top teams. That gives you that confidence that you actually can go and beat them, because on a one-off, you will beat somebody once, but you're not going to win a few decent championship matches against really good teams. I think out of Division, probably 4, definitely not, and to a certain extent out of Division 3, you might get one along the way, but you're not going to get wins consistently. And I would definitely feel our progress was made through the league. Obviously, they give us the confidence to win big championship games. Yeah, no, perfect. No, that's what I was thinking.
Can I just say on that, Connor? One can't. I think Matty's articulated so beautifully. One can't happen without the other. Yeah. You can't walk in if you're Matty Ford and be kicking 0-14 against Waterford of a Tuesday night, and then walk in at the weekend against freaking Mike McCarthy or Tom O'Sullivan against the Kerry in a championship game. You just can't do it. So that's why I suppose the live story is so important. and why you're right about the next step for them is about a championship win, because Mulroy will definitely come under a bit of pressure when it comes up to the championship games here. People will be targeting them, and rightly so. But, you know, I think the other fella, Kieran, forget his second name, he stepped up this
Barton.
week.
Kieran Barton.
Yeah. He scored 4 or 5 points, 6 points. So it's important, the other players get that. And the higher up the league they go, the better the footballer they're going to mark, the more exposure they're going to get, and that fine tunes you for the championship season.
Yeah, no, perfect. No, that both of them are very, very valid points there. I just don't know, you are right, though. They're not mutually exclusive. Like, if you can do well in one, you're likely going to do well in the other. But I just think Mickey Loud do need a championship scalp, which they are capable of.
They are, of course, but I just think when I call them weaker teams, the same teams out of Division 3, Division 4, that like the likes of a Kerry wouldn't be really disappointed, or Dublin about getting probably relegated, but it gives the so-called weaker teams huge confidence going into the championship. You would rarely see a Division 3 or 4 team going into the championship off the back of a really poor run, and all of a sudden stringing 2-3 wins together. It just doesn't happen. So I think the likes of that will really, really stand to Louth and Limerick, without a shadow of a doubt, who should have beaten Tipperary 2 years ago in the championship in the Munster semi-final. They will give them huge confidence going in. And like, Louth will see this as a really good chance of probably getting to at least a semi-final, if not a final, depending on what side of the draw they're on. If they can avoid Dublin and Kildare in one side of the draw, they'll see themselves having a really good chance. And like, if they can go to Croke Park next weekend and win, it's an even bigger shot in the arm to them. And a run out in Croke Park, a league title and another win under their belt, and they'll be in a really nice position rolling into the championship if they can get a win next week against Limerick.
And Conor, you're the stat man. The last time I think Limerick were at the apex of Munster Football Championship, where they should have been a Kerry team, if I remember, was maybe 2006, 2007.
I think
when they were playing Division 2 football. Yeah.
I think they got to the Munster final in 2010. Yeah, I think that was their last. I think there was a few refereeing decisions went against them that day, because Kerry ended up getting a few retrospective suspensions, and Down knocked out Kerry that day in Croke Park.
Yeah. So, I mean, Limerick had gone up the league for a couple of seasons prior to really being there, had good exposure, had guys who were in about the camp for 2-3 years. So that's there is a correlation between rising up the leagues. Matty's a perfect example with his Wexford team and getting that run in the championship.
There we go, lads. There we go. And moving on to Division 4. FPD Semple Stadium, Tipperary 114, London 12 points. Conor McKenna, Tipperary lads were looking for that performance. They got it up to go to Division 3 to play the mighty Cavan this Saturday.
Yeah, the game is doubling up as the third place playoff for the 2020 All-Ireland Championship, so Cavan have a chance to get the third place spot. But I think Tipperary were never going to lose to London, lads, to be honest with you. Now London did a good game. London have competed quite well in that, but I wasn't happy with the schedule in that, to be honest with you. Now, one thing I did hear, to be fair to the GAA, I heard both Sligo and Leitrim did agree to it to be in on Sunday, which is probably not a good reflection on everything that they'd agreed to a match that could potentially be a dead rubber. If it is true, I'm not sure what way it is, but I think what must have happened is London must have booked their flight or accommodation a long time ago as an agreement, and I suppose the counties were asked to move it, and I suppose they probably didn't want to move it to the side. I'm not sure exactly the ins and outs, but look, it is what it is. It's not youth crime, but I think Cavan on the tip, just the bottom line, I think they are the two best teams in that division, and the two of them will make for a good league final this weekend.
There we go. And Kingspan Breffney Park, Cavan 3-21, Waterford 10 points. Matty Ford, not a whole pile to say about this game, other than Cavan are one of the best teams in Ireland at the minute.
Cavan are absolutely one of the best teams in Division 4. This was kind of expected. Look, they've been crying out for this performance probably throughout the league, and I suppose the shackles probably came off. Waterford obviously not a lot to play for, nothing to play for. But Cavan probably needed a good performance, and they got it. To be fair, it was kind of it was really over before it started, and for Cavan it's the ideal. They probably would have expected a few more of these along the way, if I'm being honest. The scrapped fell over the line in London, and could have snuck it, and that would have had serious repercussions for what has happened since, with Sligo winning probably would have put them up ahead of them. But look at job done. Not a lot to say. They'll be happy enough going into the final on Sunday, and it's really nice. Saturday. It's really nice position for them to be playing Tipperary again after losing down in Semple Stadium. So they'll have a score to settle.
They definitely will. And in Network Cullen Park, you had Carlow 14 points, Wexford 111. Matty, I'll stick with yourself for this particular game, my good man.
Yeah, look, I think from what I've heard, they were done their living best to throw it away and lose it. But look, it's Wexford season. You know, as Kevin mentioned earlier on about someone in a microcosm, they could have won it, they could have lost it, they couldn't push on and actually win it. You know, there was seemingly a couple of horrific mistakes at the end. There were 2 points up, a couple of horrendous mistakes that let Carlo back in. Carlo actually went ahead, I think, in about the 74th or 5th minute, and that's something we've seen throughout the league. Like most second halves now seem to be going anywhere from 5 to 8 minutes overtime. How there can be that much with no water break, I can't understand in all these games how we're getting into the 76, 78 minute in some of these games. But you know, Wexford tried to give it away. Look, they've scored 111. I think it's actually bang on their average score for the entire National League, about 14 points per game. You know, realistically, you might win a league game or maybe 2 in any given season with weather being poor, but you know, you're not going to consistently win games scoring 14 points, and that's been our biggest problem. You know, our turnover of players. It's very hard to find the best team. You know, there's 3-4. The defence is actually quite settled, and if you look at it, probably only conceding 14-15 points, which has given you a chance in most games, but it's up front where we're really struggling, and you know, you're not going to win many games like that. And you know, look at, again, I'd said it on here a couple of times over the years, it's been a poor league campaign. You know, third last with only, I think, Carlo and Waterford below us. And you know, it's 8 goals. I think it's 8 goals and 100 points conceded. So you know, you have to be tight at the back. I think we've only scored 3 goals in the National League. You know, Jesus, it's poor enough. There was probably seasons where it scored, what was it, 3? I think they only scored 390. There's probably seasons where I'd scored that on my own. You know, no disrespect to him playing. But, you know, look at, I'm actually being deadly serious. You know,
that was when Kilkenny played in the football league.
Roy scored more than the whole Wexford team.
To be honest, Kevin, it mightn't actually be far off it. You know, that's the sad part.
I think that was 360, Samuel Roy. Connor, you could correct me on that, Mr. Statsman.
I think, Matty, that was when Kilkenny played in the league, was it, when you scored that? Was it?
we actually never played Kilkenny in the league, but
Division 4 is a waste of time. Get out of
it. Look at it is, and look at it'll be, as I said on here, the teams coming back in are not going to make it any easier for Wexford. They're no superpowers coming out of Division 3, but it's not getting any easier for Wexford, and I think we're going to be in Division 4. I could be on here talking in 5 or 6 or 8 years' time, and I think we could be still in Division 4, and you know, the championship is not looking any more appealing. And Connor was saying about, you know, hoping teams would take the Tailteann Cup seriously, and Wexford probably will, but look, you're really actually probably looking around struggling to see who could you actually beat in it. So you know, I think our footballers are going to have it's Offaly in 4 weeks' time in Wexford Park, but you know, I'd be very worried about playing Offaly. I know they've been relegated, but you know, they've put in some really good performances in that division, and I'd be very worried as a Wexford man about what's coming down the line in 4 on the 24th, I think it is.
I think, Matty, to be fair, I think they could have had a few more wins. That they probably could have beaten Leitrim, could have beaten Tipperary, but I do get the gist of it. They don't see, it's been a good few years now in Division 4, like, you know.
Yeah, no, look, it is, and I said it's not getting any better. Like, realistically, I was at the Cavan game. They should have won the Cavan game. They probably should have won the Leitrim game, you know, but you know, they didn't win them, and that's been the problem.
Yeah.
We said it about was it Kildare, and even maybe Monaghan, sorry, to a certain extent, about not being able to finish games out. Wexford haven't been able to buy a win and finish out games and put themselves in position to win the game. And the Sligo game was the perfect example, and Tipperary as well, actually. They should have won the 2 of those games at home, and actually puts them in a really strong position that it gives them that bit of confidence that actually probably could go and win the other games. But look, that's where we're at. And as I said to the lads on here, and probably my first week on, it's going to be a long time before anything changes with that, I'm afraid.
There you go. Strong words from the best footballer to ever come out of Wexford, lads. Mark Fitzpark on Sunday. Unfortunately, this game didn't live up to the billing because both teams knew their fate for the next year. But anyway, Conor McKenna, Sligo 216, Leitrim 210 in Mark Fitzpark.
Yeah, well, I just touched on that game briefly earlier, how I was very disappointed that it was a dead rubber match, you know. But lads, I don't know, I didn't hear much about the game, but I think, I'm open to correction, I think 2 teams got straight red cards. Now, you'd be very annoyed if you're a manager and a player gets a straight red card in the dead rubber game and suspended for the first round of the championship. You know, like, particularly when I think Leitrim are playing London in the first round. I'm not 100% sure who Sligo's opponents are, but Leitrim have a very winnable game in the first round away to London. You know, and now I didn't hear who the player was, but it's a bit of a disappointment, like, for them losing a player like that. You know, and I suppose that's probably the one thing I'd say both management to be disappointed with.
It's actually the guy Keith Byrne who's their top scorer by a long. He was only marginally behind Mulroy in the highest score in the country, and it's him that actually got the straight red. So you know, he'll be a big miss for him if he is suspended. I'm sure he probably will be for the first round. And you're dead right, Conor.
Matty, it's arguably Sligo's best player, most of the league, most consistent player, Sean Carmichael.
Carmichael,
he was very good. He was very good against Cavan midfielder. He's the other one that got the red card. So good point, Conor. Yeah.
So that's it. That's very, very poor discipline at that level, as I'd imagine. Like with a dead rubber match, it was probably similar to Austin Gleeson yesterday in the hurling. It was, I don't know, like it's not good to see players getting straight red cards, but it's definitely not good to see them getting straight red cards when there's nothing at stake, you know.
There you go, lads. There you go. And moving on to this weekend's actions, lads. The National League finals. So we'll touch on Saturday's game in Division 4. The final, Cavan against Tipperary, Croke Park at 2:30. Kevin McGurty, this is one we're all looking forward to.
Yeah, and for me, it's really about how Cavan go into this game mentally to deal with the full forward line of Tipperary. So, you know, how they're going to deal with, you know, Fox, how they're going to deal with Conor Sweeney in particular and getting the ball into him. Cavan have been in the last 3 games underperforming badly. And to be quite honest with you, you know, they haven't started games well. They did in London and then all of a sudden collapsed in themselves. So, you know, Mickey Graham will be looking at a big performance. You bear in mind then obviously the result that was had a couple of weeks back in Breffni Park. Cavan will be licking their wounds from that as well. The good thing about Cavan is that they can rely on Geroid McKernan up front. Martin Reddy seems to have work from them. You know, and you would be imagining 3 weeks out from the championship, Cavan would have most of their hard work done right now. Maybe the last couple of the weeks in the league they were winding down. Got a morale boosting, you know, 3-21 against Waterford. You know, with all due respect to Waterford, it maybe wasn't the best prep game. But look, Cavan have had to do what they've had to do this year. It wasn't easy for them. They've ticked a lot of boxes. And I suppose they'll have learned a lot from the first Tipperary game. They didn't start well at all in that game, you know, and they were chasing the game for a long time. So, you know, big thing on how they contain Conor Sweeney, but also big on how, you know, the likes of Geroid McKernan is allowed to influence the game. And that would be the major thing. Them 2 guys almost in direct opposition to each other.
Matty, for the trip to Croke Park awaits the Cavan, lads.
Yeah, look at there is sat navs and all that stuff now, so you will be able to find your way. They're very accurate. So and get in early as well. Check out a bit of you'll be able to see a bit or stay on for a while, or you'll be able to see a bit of the Division 3 final as well. No, but like I actually think it's going to be a right good game. The only thing is like Cavan, like the betting is 2-5, Cavan 5-2 or something like that. Tipperary, I don't see it, to be honest, being as clear cut as that or anywhere close to it. Tipperary have scored 11 goals in the National League. Cavan have only scored, I think it's 6, and 2 of them obviously were at the weekend in kind of more or less a dead rubber match. So, you know, 3 of them. So, you know, like they've been putting up impressive enough scores, 17 points, I think 19 points, scores like that. But, you know, if they're conceding a couple of goals against Tipperary who like to score goals, you know, they're going to make it really difficult on themselves. It will be, should Cavan win it? Yes, they probably should. But they also should have went down probably to Thurles and won that day as well. So I don't see that. I do think Cavan will win it, by the way, but I don't see it being as clear cut as, I don't see them being a 2-5 chance or anything like it, to be honest.
What about yourself, Conor? Croke Park awaits for the mighty Cavan, man.
Yeah, I think, well, if you look at both of these teams, I think the 2 of them would have went out to the league with slightly different objectives. I think Cavan would have been very much to win the league, and Tipperary would have been very much to get promotion. So I think for that reason, I probably do slightly fancy Cavan in this game. I think certainly after the first 2 rounds, Tipperary, they have 1 point after 2 rounds with 2 matches they probably would have expected to win away to Waterford in the home to Leitrim. So they've been certainly the form team. I think they won their last 5 games in a row, but I do think Cavan might just be slightly better team than Tipperary, and I think Cavan will do enough to bring home the trophy on Saturday evening.
We'll wait and see, Conor. We'll wait and see. Looking forward to that game, of course. And in the Division 3 final, you've Louth against Limerick in Croke Park at 4:45. Kevin McGurty.
Do you know what? Before we start this, I'm going to call it a draw.
Yeah.
They played each other.
What's the odds on that, Matty?
A draw in Division 3, 15-2 is pretty. It's pretty actually.
A draw in the first game too. You can't.
It's the same 15-2 in both Division 3 and 4. Yeah.
And the reason why I'm saying that is they played earlier on in the season. Yes, it was horrendous conditions. The match was moved. It was meant to be in the Gaelic ground. It was moved. I think it was on an AstroTurf eventually. They got a ground down there within an hour of the game being moved. And Louth, you know, gale force wind, Louth came back and won the game by a point. You know, and that was really kick-starting Louth's sort of season. So, you know, a nip and tug game. Billy Lee's team have got a lot of momentum. Mickey Hart's team have got a lot of momentum. Get in there. Yes, probably, I think the Louth have that wee bit more firepower up front. Really impressed with them with Antrim. I'm also really impressed with their strength and conditioning, actually. They're a decent physical team now as well, but so are Limerick. So, you know what? I'm going to call this one a draw.
There we go. Matty Ford.
That they're very likely that one of these league finals at least will probably be a draw over the weekend, and that has as good a chance I think as been anyone. They've scored 19 goals between them. Their scoring difference actually is exactly the same of plus 14 throughout the league. Their scores for and against are very, very similar in terms of the way they've obviously both ended up on plus 14. So both two teams like to score goals. I wouldn't like to, if I had to put me head on the block and call a winner, I think I would go for Louth, maybe just about, but I think that the Kevin lad could be onto something there with 50.
Kevin lad
is definitely the best value I think in it when you look at it. I think Louth about 8-11 and Limerick 11-8 or something like that. But obviously two teams coming in off the back of really good wins and really good league campaigns. So confidence is high in both. Probably, I would say Louth probably need to win it a little bit more maybe than Limerick. But look, it's a national title at stake for both of them, and both teams are going to go in to have a good crack at it. Probably not playing. Louth probably not playing until the 24th, and I'd say it's probably Limerick might be playing maybe till even after that, maybe 2 weeks after that. So, there is a bit of time between now and the first round of the championship to recover. So I'd say it'll both be going hell for leather for this on Saturday.
Conor McKenna.
It would be people from Westmeath, Wexford, Antrim and 31 other counties that would have a £10 maybe bet. Now bet responsibly, but a £10 bet on that. People from Cavan would put £1.50
each way.
Each way bet.
Oh, I can't wait for this staff night out, lads. Who's going to put the hand in the pocket first? Conor McKenna, I'm going to ruin your night by saying this. Can Mickey's Louth make much noise this weekend?
Well, I think Louth Limerick will be. I think now just going back, and we're joking about Cavan needing dressing Scrub Park, but Limerick footballers have played there, I think, less than 3 or 4 times in their whole entire history. I remember.
No, Matty, huh?
You won't. No. I was going to say you won't like to be reminded of this, but I think in Limerick, I think they beat Shea one year in the qualifiers playing for Wexford after you had narrowly lost to Dublin in the final, and then Kerry knocked them out in the quarterfinal. I think that was their first time since the 1800s playing in Croke Park in football, and I think they might have reached the Division 4 final then a few years ago. But I just think
Christ,
Sam
Conor,
Mulroy.
you're only here for a bit of banter and you're rubbing it in.
Yeah.
I did say that.
Get a bit of salt. Why don't you get a bit of salt there?
I wasn't saying either. I retired.
You retired that year, had you?
I did say that though. We were talking about Cork football in the group chat last night, and Conor would probably give Dan a poor headache. I think Dan's in Killarney at the minute having a few points.
But just going back and just to make it simplified, it was Sam Mulroy. I just think he'd be player a bit of class out there. He might just be the difference between the teams. I think Louth might shade it.
There you go. What you make of all that, Matty, huh?
Yeah, look at well, he's dead right. But unless Limerick lost to Kerry in Croke Park that year, that Wexford Kerry game or Wexford Limerick game was definitely down in the Gaelic grounds, because I think there was serious controversy at the end with a ball that apparently was completely wide. It was given as a point, because I remember listening to it because I actually had retired the year before. It was I retired in 2010, so it was the qualifiers in 2011. I didn't go to a lot of matches for a good while after I retired. So, but like it's actually interesting that they have played so little in Croke Park, and Louth, while they haven't played a whole lot in it, to probably have a couple more games under their belt. And same as Conor, I wouldn't say strongly fancy, but I think maybe Louth will come out with just probably the Sam Mulroy factor. Maybe alone, I think, is worth siding with Louth, but only just.
Is the referee appointed for that game yet? Does he got security guards with Louth being inside?
Well, I think it was at the last they were expecting Nigel Owens to do it, but with him not doing it, I think it'll probably be safe enough that there'll be no tries allowed this weekend anyway. So I'd say the referee will probably be safe enough.
And then we'll go to the games this Saturday. €5 for a juvenile, €15 for student, and adults are €20. What do you think of that, Kev?
Cavan people 250. They'll be trying to steal player passes from everybody else. Three chalk aces for £1, you know. Be back to the good old days of the 1980s inside, hats, flags and headbands.
Yeah, lads gone in on walking sticks with student cards.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Apparently, it was a bit of theft down Cavan General Hospital this week. There was a couple of wheelchairs stolen.
Oh, I don't think this is the last bit of slagging I'm going to get for going to Croke Park on Saturday, lads, but there you go. It comes with the rights. It comes with the rights. Oh, Lord. It's going to be a fun weekend, no doubt. It's going to be a fun weekend. Looking forward to it. We cannot wait for it. We will move on to Division 2. Roscommon against Galway. Croke Park, 1:45 on Sunday. Conor McKenna.
Yeah, well, I suppose out of the four finals, I don't know, is this going to be one that's going to get the pulses racing, to be honest with you. I think the other ones is a bit more novelty to every team being there, but Galway, Roscommon, Galway probably a better team. They beat them twice last year when it mattered in league and championship. They didn't beat them yesterday, but I don't know, will that be of any worry to Galway, as mentioned earlier, and I think Galway could actually potentially be All-Ireland dark horses to get to Atak.ie, and they have a real chance of beating Mayo in the first round of Connacht. So I think Power Joyce will go out to win this game. They're probably slightly a better team than Roscommon, and I think they'll do it with a bit to spare. I'm going to say Galway by 5 or 6 points.
Connor, if Galway are All-Ireland dark horses, I promise you, live on YouTube, I will fight John Joe Joyce burn up a boxing. That's a promise.
Right.
All right? And I'll come in a horse and trap.
There we go, lads. There's your answer to that. But there you go, Kev. Galway, they'll have to live up to now.
Yeah, I think I'd share the same thoughts as Kev, but we will wait and see. I think Division 2 done Galway the world good. Matty Ford, what are you thinking for that?
I actually fancy Roscommon here. I could be eating my words next Monday even, but you know, just betting is 8 to 15, 15 to 8, and as I said, for a bit of value, you know, Galway I don't think are much value at that, to be honest. Look at they're absolutely the favourites, but I think again it depends on who plays. You know, Shane Walsh going to play, will he be available? Will he be back or whatever? But Roscommon have the meanest defence in the league. They've only conceded 2 goals. You know, but on the flip side, Galway have scored 14 goals. I know probably 6 of them came again against Derry in round 6, but you know this is an interesting enough one. As I said, Conor says it mightn't maybe get the pulses raised. It doesn't really have the novelty effect maybe of some of the other ones, but you know I just have a sneaking suspicion for Roscommon here. Looking at they've a serious set of forwards. They've 6 absolutely outstanding forwards in my opinion. Yeah. They've been scoring really heavily. As I said, they've been mean enough at the back. 112 conceded yesterday, and I think they had kept them to about 8 points for the big part of the game. I think Galway only tagged on a goal and a couple of points near the end of the match. And look, clearly not a full strength Galway team, but you know, I'd give more than a fighting chance here to Roscommon. I actually think they've a really good chance of beating Galway. I think they're in a really good place. They've been tipping along through the league nicely. A good draw with Derry, and look, Derry have shown their worth throughout the league. So you know, you couldn't judge too much on yesterday. Obviously, Roscommon had to win that game. Said maybe they'll Galway a little bit fresher going in, and with that bit of a chip on their shoulder, having lost to them this week. But I wouldn't see this as a big shock at all. Or Roscommon to win, and you know I actually would nearly go with Roscommon myself.
James Bond, what do you reckon?
It's very much about how the Roscommon defence handles the Galway forward line. I'm totally with Matty on this. I've watched Roscommon twice this year. I'm really impressed with their 6 forwards, and that was their Achilles heel for so long. Was it maybe they were learning and Donny Smith and times gone by and people like that? Just, you know, there wasn't enough scores. Now they look really good up front. They have a decent midfield, very athletic midfield. You know, their backs have been mean this year, but it's how they handle that axis of Comer, Tierney, if he plays Walsh. You know, that will be the winning and losing of this game, because obviously Galway's strength is their forward line and their Achilles heel is their defence. So for me, it's all down to the Roscommon defence, how this game will go, and if they can handle that power up front that Galway have. Obviously scoring 14 goals. I don't see them getting many goals in this game, and I like the way Roscommon are moving at the minute. I really do. So you know what? I'm going to go with Matty in this and plump for Roscommon.
Mm-hmm. Happy days. And moving on to the Division 1 final, the penultimate game of the National League, lads. Kerry against Mayo, Croke Park, 4 p.m. A game we're all looking forward to. Could be a bit of shadow boxing. Who knows? James Horan, shrewd man. Jack O'Connor, shrewd man. Matty Ford. Let's have you.
Yeah, this is shaping up to be a good game. You know, the weather is not shaping up to be great by all accounts, but hopefully we get a decent weekend for these matches.
Stage right Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. But look at it. Yesterday was a perfect example. Really good quality football yesterday. Probably the first decent weekend weather-wise through the whole National League. And if we get something like that again next weekend, this game could actually be a real spectacle, because there are two teams that are going to absolutely have a go at it, the same as they did in Killarney a couple of weeks ago. You know, it's probably advantage Kerry. Mayo didn't start particularly well in the league, so had to win, you know, get good results in the last couple of fixtures to make it through. And you know, they were quite impressive yesterday. I think scored 218 from play yesterday against Kildare. But you know, this Kerry defence has been pretty mean. I think they're only second, only 4 points behind Roscommon in what they've conceded through the National League, obviously playing much higher quality teams. So only again 2 goals conceded, only one of them from play. And scoring 10. So look at on that alone, you'd probably have to just about go with Kerry. Like, it's not going to be that straightforward. Mayo are a team who just, you know, they have to be halfway back to the Shannon before you've actually have them beaten, and that they've been the case with them over the last number of years. But this Kerry team just looks to have a little bit more than they had over the last couple of years. I think it was at the last league final where Mayo beat Kerry 4 or 5 years ago. I'm sure Conor will be able to tell us exactly when it was, and you know, they were full value for it. But this Kerry team does look to have a bit more. You know, the rest of the couple of lads over the last couple of weeks, they look to be getting back close to full strength. You know, I'm sure Jack Barry will be back in the middle of the field. The 2 Cliffors will be back on the next day. You know, Brosnan could but they have now a panel of players, particularly up front, that they haven't had before. And I think that defeat the weekend will be a nice, as I said earlier on about a couple of the teams, a nice little bit of a stick to beat them with coming into Sunday. And I do fancy Kerry to win.
There we go, Mr. McKenna.
Yeah, well, I think this is James Horan's 4th season in charge, and that was his first year. So that was 2019. Kerry, or Mayo beat Kerry in the final. Just to quickly cover that one, Matty. But just to treat 2 or 3 interesting stats just ahead of the game. The 3 times Tyrone have been All Ireland champions, Jack O'Connor has dethroned them each time with Kerry. So it's an interesting one for Kerry, and also in each of those 3 years, Kerry also won the league while before winning the All Ireland. So I think Jack O'Connor, if you look at the 8 teams that started Division 1, the one team you could say really were taking the league serious and trying to win it is Kerry. Do you know, and they're in the final now, and I fully expect them to do the business on Sunday, to be honest. I think they started only winning one of the last 11 matches in Croke Park is something they need to rectify. A lot of those games have been tight games that they probably should have won. Do you know, most of them actually, for that matter, I think there's only 2 or 3 of them that they were clearly outclassed. So I think Kerry, big game, a lot at stake. I'm kind of expecting to win on Sunday, to be honest with you.
There we go, Kevin McGurty.
Intriguing game, intriguing matchups. You know, I would hope to see that Tom O'Sullivan, as a Kerry man, I would hope to see a supporter. I would hope to see Tom O'Sullivan and on Ryan O'Donoghue. Won't that be a tasty matchup? The one thing for me is that Mayo are possibly carrying 1 or 2 severe injuries into this game, in terms of, you know, Killian O'Connor still out, Dermot O'Connor, you know, scoring forwards. Who's going to take that burden off Ryan O'Donoghue? I do take on board Matty's point that they had a lot of scores last weekend throughout the park, but you know, with this Kerry mean defence, with the abundance of talent Kerry have up front, I expect them to have too much scoring power for Mayo. The one big aside to this game isn't it going to be class? I said this the other week, but really now after the game, after Kerry played Mayo down in Tralee, the 2 midfields have just come on leaps and bounds. We've seen that in Armagh City with the Kerry midfield, but we've also seen it with the Mayo midfield last day out and against Tyrone. So that Jordan Flynn, Dermot O'Connor, Jack Barry, sort of Matty Ruan, that's going to be an unbelievable clash to watch. That's just going to be superb to watch. So as an aside for anybody listening to us, keep an eye on that. That's going to be epic. But I still believe Kerry have too much firepower at the minute.
And Matty, a couple of probably talking points going into the game. Who do you reckon will pick up Mr. David Clifford? Because obviously that'll be huge talking points. Stop Clifford, potentially stop Kerry, but that's one to definitely look at on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it could be O'Hora. I don't think it's likely to be Lee Keegan. it's a tough one because you're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, because he'll take a bit of the limelight off, and Tony Brosnan could score 1-3 or 1-4 very quick. So it's actually it's not a great position, to be honest, for Mayo to be in, to have so many guys to look after. The last couple of times they've played Kerry, Mayo have tried probably a couple of different players on Clifford, and to be honest, it hasn't really worked properly. There's a new guy there at the back. McBrien was playing yesterday. Like, I don't know, to be honest, if he'll play in the league final. Brendan Harrison's back there, not really, I think, suited to David Clifford. Would the risk, like, I don't really see Oisin Mullen, to be honest, as being a man marker. I think his game is bombing up and down the field. He can, and he has probably come in at the start of his career, 2-3 years ago, as a good man marker. But I think there's more value in him for Mayo, going up and down the field. That, like, to me, that's a really big one. That could probably be the difference in winning or losing the game. Is Stephen Cohen going to be fit to play? Will he come back in? Could he be someone that they could put back on him? Because whatever he's been asked to do over a number of years, he'll certainly stick to the task pretty well. But that's going to have a huge bearing on the game. And again, on the flip side of what Kevin is saying, on the other side, Thomas Sullivan probably does pick up Ryan O'Donoghue, and where are, if he's held to a certain extent, where are the bulk of the scores going to come from Mayo? Because with the exception of the Kildare game, they haven't really been forthcoming for the duration of the league. But there's any number of matchups, and Kevin's first point about the midfield, that's probably the biggest one of the whole lot. Probably whoever wins midfield has a really, really good chance of winning the match. I think Mayo need to win it a lot worse than Kerry do, to have a chance. Kerry probably don't have to break even there to be able to win the game. But there's going to be a number of really interesting matchups all over the field. And it's, I said, hopefully we'll get a decent bit of weather for it as well. But look at whoever picks up Clifford in the open space of Croke Park is going to have their hands full. His game intelligence is such that he doesn't have to be the main man. He doesn't need to be the main man. He does the right thing with the ball every single time. And he's a great example for any young guys looking at him. There's huge pressure on him, obviously, every day go out. But you take your eye off him for a split second and he'll murder you. So there's intriguing battles, left, right, and centre, and I can't wait for it, to be honest.
And I think that, John, that's a really important point that Matty said. David Clifford, sometimes, if you were a manager, if you had the embarrassment of riches that Jack O'Connor has right now, sometimes you just say to David Clifford, drift you off out there and look into the sunshine in the Hogan stand and look at the girl in row G and how good looking she is, and distract the defence. Because they'll probably have somebody like Cohen on him, a big physical guy who can mark a bit. Because you need that physicality around him as well. Because David Clifford causes you so many problems. He can shoot off either foot. He's sleight of foot as well, that he can turn a man. But he's also physically very powerful. So you can't put a small buck on him. So he poses you so many different problems. But sometimes, to combat that, they might put 2-3 boys on, back in there. So, you've got Tony Brosnan as a foil to him. You've got Paddy Clifford as a foil to him. You've got, when he wants to, Killian Spillane, if he comes on, Michael Burns. All these guys can score and score heavily. Stephen O'Brien. And that's the thing. Sometimes Clifford just needs to take himself out of the way for a couple of minutes, opening up the opposition's defence, and let Kerry go to town. And yes, Matty's right. You can't not watch him, because he'll just drift into a game and he'll score. But the other thing about Clifford is he might not stay in full forward, for example, a corner forward. He can drift out into the field, as we see with Gooch in his later years, and he can bring other people into the game. He's equally adept out on the 40 as he is inside on the 21 or the 14-yard line. So he's such a difficult person to mark, because he gives you so many different conundrums. He's physically big. He can score off either foot. He can play in full forward. He can play a bit like Michael Murphy in many ways. So, that would be a tough one. But I would suspect, because of his physicality, the only player that they've got would be somebody like Stephen Cohen. Matty, I think you're probably right on that one.
Connor, carrying side Croke Park, this is what we've all been waiting for. Obviously, their league form has been sensational, but when they do get inside Croke Park, there is kind of struggles. The test is going to come in spades this Sunday.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned earlier on in the group chat during the week, if Kerry were to win this, that they'd probably be going in there to an Ireland quarter-final, having won a league, a McGrath Cup and a Munster Championship. Now, I know a lot of those competitions aren't one bit prestigious, but I think Kerry, it'll mean a lot to them to win this game. Now, Mayo will want to win it too, but I think Jack's target of the league is clear, and it could easily be a repeat of the All-Ireland final. Like, Mayo are quite likely to be there. Kerry, like, because both teams are on the opposite side of the draw, Munster and Connacht, if they were to win every match in the provinces, which many would expect. So yeah, I just think Kerry, they probably, in big games recently, Mayo probably have slightly maybe got the upper hand over them. Mayo beat them in 2017 in the Ireland semi-final and also in the 2019 league final, where Kerry, I think, beat them in the championship in 2019. So it's very much 50-50. Kerry just slightly better panel of players. I'd love to know what the situation is with Sean O'Shea, because he's a huge loss to Kerry at the moment, and he's one of the best players in Ireland on any day. Like, so is Sean O'Shea, if he comes back fit, it's probably worth an extra 5 or 6 points to Kerry. So if Kerry can win the league without Sean O'Shea, then that would bode very, very well for the championship, I think.
Conor, you just broke Matty's heart there talking about another prestigious cup. He would love to win something for Wexford.
Yeah, when you're playing for Wexford, everything was prestigious, so it was. But we'd even a chance winning the McGrath Cup, even though it's in Munster, we'd have took a rattle at that, to be honest.
Matty, Kerry inside Croke Park.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I think, look, we do kind of, I think the general consensus, a lot of people think that this Kerry team is the real deal. Look, I still have questions to answer. We have mentioned our midfield on a couple of occasions. It does look very exciting. But I would say arguably at the moment, probably the Mayo midfield is probably every bit as good, if not that, maybe that little bit better. Look at Diarmuid O'Connor and Jack Barry are a pretty new partnership. They're two pretty young guys. Now Jack Barry's been around a couple of years, but as a partnership, it's a pretty new one. But I'm really looking forward to it. I hope the weather is good to see the Cliffords and, Gainey and Brosnan. You just keep going, and Killian Spillane and, Burns, you keep going, unfortunately, from Mayo's point of view with these forwards and, space. And like, as I said there about Clifford, he's not afraid to come and do the dirty stuff, but like, he's the ultimate team player. He has everything that a footballer would want. He's left-footed, he's right-footed, he's pacey, he's strong, he's aggressive, but like, he's fully prepared to do the right thing for his team all the time. As I said, he's a great example to any young fella that it doesn't have to be all about him, and he's more than happy to lay balls off and create space for other guys. And I'm really looking forward to him. Like, I won't be at the game. It's actually a game I probably should have been going to. As I said, I sat at the I think it was a Kerry Galway quarter final 5-6 years ago behind the goal. It's actually a really good place up, very, very high to sit. And it was James O'Donoghue who was in his prime at the time, and it was a joy.
2015, 14
or 15. Himself, Gooch and Donaghy was the full forward line, and it was mesmerising to sit directly behind the goal and look what was going on. And this will be something similar. I think while a lot of people said they're probably not great seats, to see the movement and see what lads are doing off the ball, I think is every bit as interesting as what's going on it, or probably behind it. And I think this will be one that'll definitely be worth watching anyway. And I think if anyone decided, I think it might be the worst place to be heading up behind the goal and having a look, for anyone who's really, really interested in it.
The only thing I would say, Matty, the only caveat to that is one thing. This is Kerry inside Croke Park over the last
whole point.
10 years. Yeah. They've, for want of a better word, they've shit the nest. They've let us all down. This is the common team, And if you get that Mayo in the first 10, 15 minutes that we seen with the intensity that they had against Dublin in the league game inside Croke Park, or in the second half of the All-Ireland semi-final last year, this is the big problem with Kerry. Can they cope with intensity? And they seem to have this problem when it comes to Tyrone all the time with intensity in the tackle. And, if Mayo bring that, the cat's among the pigeons. On pure talent, scoring power, only one winner. But can Kerry answer them critics of when they get inside Croke Park, can they deal with intensity?
Yeah, absolutely. It's 100%, Kev, you're dead right. But I just think, I know we didn't see it yesterday, but we have kind of flagged it up, and I think we were all in agreement with they seem to have that little bit more intensity, but probably quite a bit, to be fair, particularly at the back, than they have had over the last number of years, where they've been really mean in defence, and even the forwards working particularly hard, that you don't often associate with Kerry teams, getting a lot of guys around the ball and around the ball carrier. Obviously, they've had these problems with Tyrone, but I suppose Sunday will give us a really good insight into where Kerry are going exactly. If they lose the game, which is not beyond the bounds of possibility, it really does bring up big question marks. But I think if they win it, and maybe win it with a little bit to spare, I think maybe then we can start saying that they probably are the real deal. But one win in 11 wouldn't be in Croke Park, wouldn't be something you would associate with Kerry teams. But look at it, it's going to be exciting, I think, anyway.
Last one on it, Conor McKenna. Where is Mr. Aidan O'Shea playing this weekend?
I don't know, but I think the only position he hasn't played for Mayo is goalkeeper. He's played in every line apart from that. And I suppose One player probably who we all remember near enough Matty's neck of the woods is John O'Shea. He played every position in soccer. He played a goalkeeper, defender, midfielder and striker. And Aidan O'Shea, we might see him in the goals this weekend to take a few kickouts and complete the quartet. But I know, but I'd say Aidan O'Shea, he's a player that Mayo, I thought he was actually suited enough to an impact role off the bench. He was a real, I suppose, the crowd favourite as well. The crowd even at Mayo do bring a big crowd. The energy he gets coming off the bench is huge. You know, that kind of way gives the team. But it probably, I think, you're better off around the back line. He reads the game very well and very good fielder of the ball. So I certainly wouldn't give him a number higher than 9 at the weekend.
Matty?
I to be honest, if I was Mayo and I seen him playing at 6, I think I'd be licking my lips, to be honest. You know, he is very good at reading the game. He's very good at getting on the ball, but obviously he's not the player he was 6-7 years ago. And I think Mayo, or Kerry would be delighted to see him playing centre back, if I'm being honest, on Saturday. I think they would really target that and really go hard at it. I think he possibly will start on the bench Saturday. I think the likes of him and Kevin McLaughlin now over this league campaign maybe coming on have been able to give them a bit of oxygen and, you know, give the crowd a bit of a boost. And look, you don't know, maybe he will rock up at centre back, but to be honest, I can't see it myself on Sunday at all. Not a chance.
Kev?
Depending on injuries, I would go. I'm not just saying this. I would partly agree with Conor and partly agree with Matty. I would agree with Conor on the fact, as I said it after the Ireland final last year, you asked me a question about Aidan O'Shea. Aidan O'Shea for me is only never now an impact player. That's what he is. The way that we seen Cal McShane last year come on, influence a game. You know, he's been through so many miles in the clock, you know, but I would agree with Matty on the fact is he can't play back there. We've got to see him at 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 upwards, you know. He's a battering ram. I like him running from deep. He's very hard. If you've got Aidan O'Shea coming through in the defence, he's quite a difficult guy to tackle. He'll draw in frees or he'll break the line, you know. So I would like them to see him maybe at 11, or maybe if he's coming in last 15, 20 minutes at 8 or 9, or, you know, last 10 minutes if they need a goal, pop him in full forward for his physicality. But he's not a starter for me anymore, to be honest with you.
Kev, savage value for anyone heading up from Cavan. 4 games this weekend.
4 games this weekend, £10 for Cavan, people for all 4. You know, $2.50 a game. So, you know, no, it's going to be. Look, we gave out about the GAA, and I would just want to say a word on Conor. You know, Conor turned around and said about the Division 4 thing, and Conor maybe knows he gets 1 or 2 press releases from the GAA or whatever else. Why don't they bloody well come out and tell us? Why don't they tell the general public why these decisions were made? Why don't they make a tweet about what happened with the Division 4 and say this is the reason why we had to do it? Just explain yourself. You know, at the end of the day, we can't say stuff. If London had booked trips beforehand, that's fine. Just come out and tell us. Why all the secrecy? Why all the cloak and dagger Vatican stuff? You know? But I think they've got it right this weekend. You know, give them credit where it's due. It should be great value for money Saturday and Sunday. 4 cracking games. People getting into Croke Park like Louth and Limerick that haven't been there for many a year. Tipperary usually there in the hurling. Cavan usually go down to sell hat flags and headbands. So, you know, it's good to see them have it as well. So, look, it's going to be a cracking weekend of it. And I think when the GAA get it right, tell them they got it right. And I think it's great value for money.
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. To wrap it up, lads, Matty Ford, your bet at the weekend and player to watch.
Yeah, look at the favourites are all favourites for a reason at the weekend. I said it earlier, I'm going to go with Roscommon. Roscommon as a bit of value at, I think, 11-8. Like, realistically, there's no great value in any of the favourites. I think, you know, I think Cavan are way too short at their price. I think that game is going to be closer maybe than the betting suggests. It's probably maybe pretty obvious, but Conor Cox, I think from Roscommon has hit a nice bit of form. I think he'd 4 or 5 and play at the weekend, but in that forward line and in Croke Park, looking forward to seeing him. You know, he's racked up some serious scores over the last few years, and so he just seems to be coming into a bit of form at the right time. And look at, and probably as a whole, the Roscommon forward line to see how they perform. But to pick out one, I'm gonna go with Conor Cox. Obviously, look at Sam Mulroy will be a really interesting one in the Louth Limerick game to see can he reproduce the heroics from 7 rounds of the league, and I don't doubt that he can. But I'm sure that's probably going to be maybe an obvious enough one as well.
Mr. McKenna.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a bit of an accumulator here. I'm going to say Kerry, Galway, Cavan and Louth accumulator, those four in an ACCA. So it's very hard to pick out value with one bet, but I'd say put the 4 of them in, and it mightn't be bad value. And I'd say player to watch. I think I'm interested to see Sam Mullery on the big stage at Croke Park, see how he gets on and see how he does it, because it's a big game for Louth to win and big stage for Mullery to shine. So I'm going to go with the 4 favourites, Accumulator and Sam Mullery, player of the week. Watch.
Kevin McGurty.
Louth, Limerick draw. Limerick to win on penalties. Sorry, Louth to win on penalties. Samuel Roy to score the winner. No, Louth, Limerick draw. And the player I'm most wanting to watch, I'm finding it hard to pick between Ryan O'Donoghue. I know that's the big game, so I want to see how Geroid McKiernan gets on for Cavan, because that was massive in that game. But I think the matchup between Tom O'Sullivan and Ryan O'Donoghue could be key to where this match goes, in terms of if Tom O'Sullivan steps up the mark. And I mean this, I think Tom O'Sullivan could be an all-time great in the GAA. I really do. He is a wonder player. And I just want to see him inside Croke Park on a guy who's on top form. So do you know what? I'm going to pick Tom O'Sullivan.
Super stuff. I'll go Louth to win at the weekend, and I know we said it before, but Geroid McKiernan again this weekend, lads. Big points to prove. He's inside Croke Park. Let's see what he's made of. So there we go, lads. Looking forward to this weekend. Thanks a million for joining me this week. And of course, this podcast is brought to you by orgoretsha.com and Atak.ie. Use the promo code JMAC Podcast to get 15% off on orgoretsha.com. Get the best skins, gloves, equipment on Atak.ie. Be attack minded. If you like what you're seeing, like, subscribe to YouTube, because sport's been absolutely brilliant so far. Kevin, Matty, Connor, thank you very, very much.
Cheers, lads.
Thanks. All the best, lads.
Cheers, bye.